This feel good. This feel good. This feel good.
Pancakes are like old people food. You don't really need to chew. It's easy on your mouth.
I think that's why I had.
Loving all this butter. And yes, I did just eat a glob of butter by itself. This is sugar butter. See, it's like if I had a choice right now of having sex, like really incredible sex, or eating this little tub of butter, like licking it out with my tongue, I would choose the butter. It's like, I'm shameless, I'll just go like this, you know? It's like, there's something that happens to me when I'm in the presence of delicious food. Yeah, like everybody always mentions to me how much I love to eat. And so they always assume I'm a good cook, and then it's so disappointing for them. So I'm just like, I can barely boil water. I told myself that I was going to cook. I was going to learn how to cook Korean food. Because, you know, I'm in Korea. And yet I just can't bring myself to learn how to cook. Like, and I even bought that cooking book. And yet here I am, eating pancakes. So Korean, right? Why do I hate to cook so much? Growing up, I was never really taught how to cook, and I was actually actively discouraged from cooking. But that doesn't explain why I hate to cook. Maybe it's that constant hunger in me is based upon the fact that there is this huge chunk that's missing from what I'm looking for. Instead of putting in all these loving memories, my own energy, my own sense of maybe like self-power into creating something, food, which is naturally something that comforts me. Instead of doing that, I'm going out and spending money on a kind of like a sterile experience. So it's almost like eating junk food. So I'm buying food, and yet it's not the same as making it. It doesn't have the same nutrients in it because there's certain things, there's a certain process, there's a journey missing in the middle. Maybe that's why I want to learn how to cook. Korean food, particularly. Maybe it's this belief, and it could be wrong, I could be totally wrong, that if I learn how to cook, this emptiness and hunger inside of me, it will be soothed. I don't think it's a coincidence that I discovered magic and deep spirituality when I came to Korea. So when I was in America, I was like really deep into atheism, I was really deep into sort of headspace. I don't want to call it spirituality, but skepticism. So in America, I was full of skepticism, and I operated from here. So to me, it's not a coincidence that I come to Korea, and then this energy that was all here, it's like sinking down, 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 you know, into my heart, into like my fucking womb. Historically, Korea was known as the Hermit Kingdom. So foreigners were not allowed in, and I don't think most Koreans were exactly leaving the country either. And so there's thousands of years of being very rooted in this land, thousands of years of a tradition. And it's only in the past 40 years or so, 50 years, that there's been this massive Korean diaspora. And Koreans just living all over the world. I just don't think it's a coincidence that now that I'm back in the land of my, not just ancestors, but land of my birth, something is being reawakened in me. And part of that reawakening is a desire to continue that lineage and also to fill in the gaps. And part of that gap is food. Part of that gap is learning how to cook. Part of that gap is learning nourishment. There's this feeling that I have inside that is very abstract, and food is going to concretize it. It's going to take it from here and it's going to bring it down to earth, literally. Because where do we get our food from? We get it from the earth. I haven't learned how to fill that gap, that nourishment gap within myself. And for many years, that gap, which felt like hunger, I try to fill that hunger intellectually by reading books, by thinking about things, by pondering, by being a skeptic, by questioning. And absolutely, that was helpful. But at the same time, there was still a gap. So I think maybe the gap was this big before, and then maybe it got to this much because of all the skepticism and questioning, which is very important. But now this gap right here, I have a strong sense that this gap is the non-intellectual, non-logical. It's the part where I'm using my hands and I'm using my history, not just my personal history, but a more collective history, and filling that gap that way. I'm gonna take some more of your butter. A couple months ago, I took that witch course called Influence. So Influence is this course that is facilitated by a witch named Carolyn Elliott. I had heard about Carolyn's magazine, online magazine, and I had read some articles and I was like, that's cool. But finally I decided I was going to take the course because for me, trying to find resources online, it was just taking so long, and I was just like, okay, somebody's done it before. They have a certain path, and it may be a good way to start something. You try somebody's path first, and then once you've got that path going on, then you sort of can build on top of it, or you can start your own path, whatever. One of the first things that we learned in Influence is something called Existential Kink. I described Existential Kink to you as like a combination of shadow work and loving that shadow. The concept of the shadow is there's aspects of ourselves that we just don't know about. And I think a lot of people, they think that shadow means bad. Like shadow means evil, shadow means destructive. And that's not necessarily the case. However, oftentimes shadows can seem quite destructive. And the reason why they seem destructive is that we're in denial, or we repress the shadow sides. Now, the shadow just merely means that it's something that isn't in the light yet. But once you bring it to light, it no longer becomes a shadow side.
He said this exact same thing.
What is?
Gary Zukav.
Gary Zukav, right. What does Gary Zukav say about it?
He said the things that you are not aware of.
Exactly.
And they affect your daily life, but you're not aware of them. You're making decisions subconsciously. But if once you bring it to your awareness, then you can not make the decisions that you did not want to make.
Exactly. The shadow side, it has an unusual amount of power over us simply because we're not admitting that we have it. The best way to find out your shadow side is to find out what triggers you, or find out something in your everyday life where you keep asking yourself, why do I keep making this decision even though I don't want to? And for me, it's why is it that I love to eat, and it's not like I don't have access to grocery stores. It's not like I don't have access to cooking utensils, and yet I don't cook. In fact, I actively avoid cooking, and when I do have to cook, I hate it. Like, why is it that whenever there's anything that deals with cooking, like I actually get really frustrated, angry. Like I get legit angry. Like I want to take the knife that I'm using to cut up vegetables or whatever, and I just want to stab somebody with it. Why do I have such a reaction? I've avoided trying to figure out what it is. What is that thing that keeps me from connecting the source and the end product? Like I said, how eating out is like junk food because I'm not nourishing myself in between that sort of gap in between. Why do I persist in keeping that gap? It is not that hard to close that gap through cooking. I say that I want to cook. I see all the benefits of cooking, and yet I actively avoid cooking. Why? Well, I don't like doing dishes. There's something easy like that. I don't like to mess up my kitchen. I like it to look pristine. Cooking involves fire, and I am extremely phobic of fire. I can't even light a match. I really can't. Like, I can't even use like those like Bic lighters because the fire's too close to my thumb. So I have to use one of those long barbecue lighters. And I have to light things like that. I like to go out and get food made for me because growing up, I didn't really get a lot of food made for me. So it feels nourishing to have somebody else, even if it's a stranger, make food for me. I feel powerless in terms of I don't even know where to start with cooking. If cooking was hard for my mom, then it must be really hard because my mom is such an intelligent, capable woman. The messages I was told about cooking as I was growing up, which is cooking is for weak women who are dumb, because smart women are going to spend their time studying and doing useful things out in the world. But cooking, why would you cook? You would cook to take care of children and men. Children and men, these energy sucks, these burdens. Children and men, these things that need and take from you. You're a sucker if you cook. If I knew how to cook, I'm afraid that I would end up giving up my dreams to take care of other people. It's a very binary thing in my mind, sort of like either I'm taking care of other people or I'm taking care of myself. There's no happy medium. It's always one or the other. I'm a perfectionist, so the concept of making something not so great, but then like learning how to make it better over time, that's anathema to me. That doesn't make sense to me. As a perfectionist, it must be made perfectly from the first time. So there's a lot of pressure. So cooking doesn't seem fun and meditative to me. It seems like a gauntlet. It seems like a trial of my worth. Going to the grocery store, it exhausts me. This is so funny, but when I go to a regular grocery store, I don't enjoy it. And maybe it's because when I was a child, when I would go to the grocery store, it was never a pleasant experience with my mom. Like, I think my mom saw it as this exhausting, burdensome chore. It wasn't even a neutral thing. It was just sort of like, I'm tired, I have to take care of my kids, I have to take care of this house, I have to take care of all this shit, and here's another chore I have to do. No one helps me. I have to do this shit by myself. She just hated cooking. So it's like she's picking up ingredients to do an activity that she just really does not want to do. An activity she didn't find nourishing for herself. And I could just feel it, right? So whenever I go to a grocery store, I'm very, very, very just drained from that experience. Unless I go to a super high-end gourmet grocery store. Because the way that everything is laid out in that grocery store, then it feels almost like you're going makeup shopping at Sephora. And then you know what I would end up buying at these high-end grocery stores? A box of pasta and eggs. Because I didn't know what to cook. When my mom would cook, you could just tell that she hated it. I mean, she hated it. And so in my mind, boring, mundane, annoying activity equals cooking. And because I was never really allowed to cook, or I was never really encouraged to cook, I never got to experience whether or not I personally enjoy or don't. Who knows? Maybe I'll learn to cook Korean food and I'll be like, you know what? Mom was right. Cooking is just one big racket. And I mean, I can go on forever and ever finding out all the reasons why I just don't like to cook. Even though I know that cooking would be, at the very least, an interesting activity for me to try, and perhaps maybe even life-changing. And it is definitely something I want to learn so that I can take care of my family, my future family. even though it's an activity I want to do, reasons like what I just listed are keeping me from doing it. So when somebody tells me, oh, just get a pot, get a pan, and buy some food and just do it, that's not very helpful to be told. I think what Existential Kink does is it kind of takes away the shame of, why can't I just do it? Why can't I just get over it? And you know, like I have to say, there's something kind of cool about being that girl who can't cook. I'll discuss philosophy with you till the fucking sun comes up. I'll have kinky sex with you until the sun comes up, but I won't cook, right? It's this idea of the mistress, not the wife. Being the wife is boring, being the wife is, ugh. Being the mistress is fun. I want to be the girl having fun because my mom never had fun. Oh, fuck that. Fuck that noise. I'm gonna have fun. At age 13, I was like, I want to be a woman of the, not a girl. I want to be a woman of the world. I want to go to New York City. You know, in suburban Maryland, I was like, I'm going to go to New York City. I'm going to go to all the big clubs. I'm going to just party away. And I didn't even think like where I would be at age 40. I thought I'd be dead by the age of 40, right? I was like, there's no reason for me to learn how to cook because I'm never going to have a family. I'm not going to be alive at age 40. So imagine, now you're 38 and you're like, oh, partying was fun. I don't need to party so much anymore. Supposedly, Existential Kink is called Existential Kink because there's some sort of pleasure, maybe even a sexual pleasure you receive from doing the things that you say you don't want to do. What sort of kinky pleasure do I receive from not cooking? Existential Kink, when I think about it, it's on one hand very easy to do, but on the other hand, it's a little bit difficult to do because there's so many layers. It's like on one hand, for me at least, because I tend to be very much in my head, it's a lot easier for me to think of 100 reasons, logical reasons why, like, oh, this is the payoff for me not doing something. But to get down to the real root of it, the shadow, you have to go through so many logical reasons, like go through logic, to finally get to the point where you're just like, I mean, if I keep it real, I just don't want to because I want to be the fun girl. In my mind, it's not glamorous to cook. It's not smart. Smart, fun, glamorous women, they don't cook. They burn water. And admitting that, it just sounds so, oh, you know? Like, that makes no sense. It's sort of like the fact that there's such a binary way of thinking, like either you cook and you're a boring basic bitch, or you don't cook at all and you are like the epitome of fun and cool. That's a false dichotomy. There's plenty of people who do both, and yet my mind has decided to make it this side and that side. When you've really uncovered that shadow, then you can even say, I love the fact that I'm not cooking. I love that I don't cook. I love that I'm such a fucking goddamn like perfectionist that I'm not even gonna start cooking. I fucking love that instead of nourishing myself, I'm just gonna like get sterile, half junk food to like quote unquote nourish myself. I love that I don't nourish myself. I love it. And it sounds so against everything that I should love, and yet I must love it because I did it. And when I think about it now, it's kind of funny. It's hilarious. It's like, I love not nourishing myself. I love not learning how to, I love being at the mercy. I mean, it's Chuseok holiday right now. It's holiday right now, and I love being at the mercy of like restaurants being open or not being open during the holidays. I love being at the mercy of other people making food for me. I love being at the mercy of it being, let's say, midnight, and me being hungry, and instead of having ingredients in my fridge and drawers to make food, for me having to go to the corner store and pick up, I don't know, like fucking popsicle. I don't want a popsicle, but I just don't know how to cook. So I'm just like, I have no choice. I love not having a choice. I love having no choices. I love having limited choices. I love feeling powerless like that. I love staying a child. An adult knows how to cook, knows how to take care of herself, knows how to nourish herself. Fuck that noise. I'm gonna stay a kid. I'm gonna stay a girl. I am never gonna learn how to cook, never gonna learn how to be independent. Somebody else is always gonna have to nourish me. I don't wanna cook. I don't wanna nourish myself. That's not my job. It's this feeling of I was never given nourishment, and I don't want to give up on the hope that someday somebody will give me nourishment. When you're a child, of course, you need to be given nourishment because you're a child. But when you're 38 years old, when you're close to 40, I'm not sure that waiting around for somebody else to give you nourishment is the most productive thing and the best thing you can do. Part of alchemy and part of magic is taking that and transforming it into what I choose to transform it to, right? I don't want to continue to love being helpless and powerless. That's not really fun anymore. What I would love is to learn how to cook and to cook well and to feel a sense of pride and to feel a sense of accomplishment and a sense of competence because I know how to cook, I know how to take care of myself. And not only do I know how to take care of myself, but I could potentially take care of others. Do you think Kim's Club is going to be open during My friend, she's calling a grocery store. She's asking them if they're going to be open over the holidays. They're open every other day? Oh.
The fourth day.
Fourth. Okay, so they're going to be open tomorrow. Yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll learn to cook and then I'll be like, actually, that wasn't that important. But I just don't know. I never tried. I was always resistant to trying. Maybe that's what it is that I'm ultimately looking for in life. I think I'm looking for what it means to be naturally me. And there's just a sense in me that cooking, something about the cooking, that's part of what I need to do to learn what is natural to me. Because so far I've treated it as being completely unnatural. Not because I felt like it necessarily was unnatural. You know, like I know for sure that it's unnatural for me to wear sweatpants in public. That I just know, okay? That I can tell you for sure. It just is not gonna happen. But cooking, others have told me it's unnatural. Others have demonstrated that it's unnatural. That's why I took it on. How do I actually feel about it? I don't know.
It's feel good. It's feel